Get you on the road, man.
Let me know when we're ready, Ben.
When you're ready.
Okay, good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order the North Canton Special Council Meeting, January 7th, 2021. The time is 5 p.m. Opening prayer, Dom, Mark?
I can do it unless Mark wants to do it. Mark,
go ahead, Dom.
Mark, do you have something prepared?
No, Dom. Happy New Year.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't either, but let's just roll with it. Lord, as we move into 2021, we put 20 behind us and all the experiences that our families and the emotions are running high and all the things that we had to experience, the loss and frustration. As we go forward, let's all come together as United States citizens, and let's work hard, do the right thing always. With the heart of a teacher, we're always looking to make sure we're moving the ball down the field in the right direction for the betterment of the group. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, at this time, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. All right, Ben, at this time, will you please call the roll?
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Revolt?
Here.
Member Peters?
Here.
You're fine.
Member Shreda?
Help slide down a little. Yeah, that way you won't feel as tough.
Member Fonte?
Here.
Member Foltz?
Here.
And Member Warren?
Here.
7 present.
All right, thank you very much. And for recognition of visitors, we have no one speaking tonight, so we'll move on to old business. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only Ordinance 76-20?
Revolt moves.
Both seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Administration of the City of North Canton to advertise and receive bids according to specifications established by the Department of Administration, and authorizing the mayor, upon Board of Control approval, to enter into contracts for the completion of those projects and purchases over $50,000 and budgeted for in the 2021 annual budget as adopted by Ordinance 66-2020.
All right, thank you. Chairwoman Warren.
Hi, we've talked about this a number of times, so if no other issues, I move to adopt.
Before, Chairman,
Yes,
Warren, Revolt here. Before we move to adopt the second reading, if I could, I don't want to second that, but what I'd like to do, because of the COVID situation in the administration, I would like to propose, if no one has any objections, that we amend 76-2020 to suspend the requirement for 3 readings and insert an emergency clause and finish this tonight so the administration can begin working on it.
Daryl Dom here. I have a question, if it's okay for me to ask now.
Yes.
There's an attachment to this that shows like the line items of the items of that. Do we want to click on that and show the items before we do the emergency?
If you have it, it was in your packet.
I saw it already. I'm just saying if anybody else
Ben, can you pull it up real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, just that way
this
there.
Has been, Dom, we have
It's
split
approved,
out.
though.
Dom, we have split out in an acknowledgement of potential conflicts of interest, anything that pertains to Arrowhead.
Right, that's what I was going to ask.
That will come in the second ordinance, 79-2020.
Okay.
Which will proceed on the normal path.
Okay, I just want to make sure Mark and I know which one, because I don't want to make a mistake.
This
here.
is the one. This is okay.
All right, that's why I wanted to see it, just to make sure Arrowhead wasn't in there.
It is not.
I have no questions. I already looked it over.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend to include.
Well, do we have? I guess my question is this: does anyone have any objections? Because if we can't pass it on emergency with 6, it's dead.
Right.
So
what is the special circumstances you're referring to that we have to pass on emergency?
The administration wants to begin moving on this because of the uncertain personnel environment in created by COVID in the administration.
Okay.
So it wants to begin working this list now.
You
Again,
mean we have to
the
get-
objective is to obtain where it can the best prices possible early in the year.
Yeah, I agree. So he has to get bids on a lot of this stuff because of their bigger contracts. So,
Well, you look
The
at it, a
sooner the
lot of
better.
half of them are streets.
right.
Third
So we want to
streets.
get a jump on that so we get better pricing. If Mark,
That's
if you're good with
absolutely
that,
correct.
I understand.
Yep.
That's what Rob's been doing a good job the last couple of years.
Does
So
just
anybody-
have to-
if everyone's agreeable, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we amend ordinance 76-2020 to suspend the rules for 3 readings and adopt it on emergency.
Full seconds.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay. Here's
So
the
you-
emergency clause for everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks,
So
Ben.
Daryl, you amended to include the emergency and
Suspend the
suspend the
rules.
rules for requiring 3 readings. So we can go right to.
Well, you're going to
may I
have
a
to,
motion-
you're going to just go ahead. Go ahead, Ben.
Motion adopt under suspension, right? The rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, motion, yeah, I need a motion and a second to
Both
adopt.
motions to
ordinance
adopt under suspension of rules for emergency on this ordinance.
70 as amended, okay.
As
There's a
amended.
motion.
Guys.
Is there a second?
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay,
If I may, I'm not
Yes,
sure we had the motion to adopt the second reading.
We are not. You have to read it.
we
It's
already
gotta say the
did.
second reading. As amended.
Okay.
Let's do a mulligan on this.
Okay, so, all right. So Daryl, you motioned and we got a second to amend to include a
Here's what we
clause.
got. We've voted to amend it to include the emergency suspension of rules in the emergency clause. To Ben's point, now what we need to do, having amended it, we need a motion to adopt the second reading as amended.
Okay, let's do that. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the second reading of ordinance 76-20 as amended?
Yes, and I believe Mr. Foltz has made that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Revolt seconds.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. And then we'll do this again. May I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 76-2020 as amended under suspension of the rules?
Revolt moves.
Stroya moves. Stroya seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right. Now we're good. All right, moving on. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 79-20?
Foltz
Revolt
moves.
moves. Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed or abstention?
Abstention, Soretta?
Is this the Apple,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there,
okay.
Don, says right there.
Yes,
I'm
Don.
looking.
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you.
Okay.
Yep,
so
I see it.
All right, so abstention by Soretta and Fonte. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Administration of the City of North Canton to advertise and receive bids according to specifications established by the Department of Administration and authorizing the mayor, upon Board of Control approval, to enter into contracts for the completion of those projects and purchases over $50,000 and budgeted for in the 2021 annual budget as adopted by Ordinance 66-2020 and pertaining to Arrowhead Golf and Event Center.
All right, thank you. Chairwoman Warren.
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past as well, so I move to adopt.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained?
2 abstentions, Soretta and Fonte. Motion carries 5-0. All All right.
Chair.
Excuse me?
Mr. Chairman, this is the administrator. If at the end of the meeting, if somebody would make a note to see if we could, with council's indulgence, schedule another single purpose meeting next week to do the third reading of this. So this one can't be passed on an emergency, and it's going to take 30 days from the mayor's signature. And I would rather not wait until January 25th when we come back.
Okay, we'll hit that right at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. So moving on to new business, may I have a motion and a second to suspend the council rule 24 and allow consideration of items 7A, B, C, and D without a committee report.
Revolt moves.
Troy seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, may I have a motion and a second to read by title only Resolution 1-21?
Revolt moves.
Troy seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
A resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of North Canton and the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council Incorporated, Police Lieutenants and Sergeants, as negotiated by the Department of Administration and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Okay, Patrick, I'm going to turn to you on these next four, so floor is yours.
Okay, certainly, thank you. So we should just give a special thank you to the Director of Finance, the Deputy Director of Administration, assisted. It's a team effort in the negotiations representing the city. It was a long process. It was very taxing, I think, to everybody involved to get through it. There was a lot to do. It's not ideal having all three of these come due at the same time. Somehow we managed to get off track. This didn't used to be the way, but it also didn't help that it came at the end of the year when we're adopting a budget and doing a new budget process and trying to do end of year reports out of finance. So a special kudos to them. I would also say that it's good to have the full administrative team in the negotiations. It would be certainly advice to successors and those council that are here years into the future. It's a big difference when you're negotiating face to face with the people that you supervise, that you're responsible for, as opposed to having a third party do it. I think it's much more productive and you're able to understand each other's points of view a lot better, in my opinion. You'll note when you look through your packet at the actual agreements, they have a much more professional appearance. A thank you to Kelly Hart for making all of our documents appear that they've been professionally prepared, and you have some pride in being able to hand them out. So we appreciate that. As far as I know, this is one of the first times we were able to get through everything without having to go to fact finding or arbitration and go through that extensive process that frays relationships and runs up the numbers. And I think really a special shout out should go to City Council. And that has to do with authorizing the late notification for CARES Act relief funds that came through at the end, as you recall. We believe that went a long way and was talked about at length with all the bargaining units, how much that meant to them and gave them a good feeling about City Council and that we were all on the same team. So I think that helped us all get there. So where did we get to? Nobody, got all that what they wanted. You never do, I guess, in negotiations, but and we should acknowledge that a lot of the really heavy lifting has occurred in the decades before now. But I'm going to speak to it, even though we're talking about 7A. some of the things that we changed or affected are through all 7A, B, and C. So with the chair's indulgence, I'm just going to try to talk about all of them in some coherent fashion rather than wait for 7B and 7C to come up on the agenda. So there was cleanup involved with language. There were at least, a half a dozen to 8 things that we found in each of the collective bargaining agreements that should have been stripped out from before. There was still reference, believe it or not, to Sunday overtime, which the city, negotiated away some time ago, but languages never got taken out. They were missed or skipped inadvertently. So there were things like that we had to make sure that in researching what had gone on before that went and was reflected in these agreements. And then there were things like issues with on holiday, when a holiday occurs during someone's vacation. The contracts were a little vague on how that's treated. And, basically, if your holiday falls during your vacation and you're off on a week, well, you have 4 days off and 1 vacation day. 1 holiday day. So 4 vacation days, 1 holiday day. So we cleaned that up to make it reflect what finance is doing. And so these are all minor things, but they were important to set the tone that we were paying attention to the way things were. So there were a number of those are minor. When we start, and that applied to all 3 agreements. Now to get into another thing that was common throughout all the agreements is that the city increased the life insurance for all of its employees in all the bargaining units to $50,000. That came through the health insurance that needed to be reflected into the agreement. So that was uniformly changed. As we look at the first one here, 7A, the lieutenants and sergeants, that's the Fraternal Order of Police. And so 3 major or talking points that we went through. First were wages. So in this particular case, the sergeants and lieutenants get paid a differential over top of what the highest ranking patrol gets. For some time, it had been at 10% differential. They were bargaining for 12 on the lieutenants, and we have 1 lieutenant. And then on the sergeants, from 15, where it had been, to 17. So we reached agreement on that. On comp time, all the units were looking for an increase in comp time. We saw that also in the other bargaining agreements that we had done last year with the street department and service department and the like. So we went from 60 hours of comp time to 80 hours of comp time. And then what we liked, 2 things that we particularly liked here were on overtime, that when overtime need occurs, it gets offered to the person of the same rank first, rather than being offered. So like if the sergeant's off and the shift needs filled, rather than the lieutenant fill it, which is at the higher rate, that it first be offered to a sergeant to fill so that it's at the same rank, same ratio. So we moved forward with that. And then the thing that we really needed to do, and it really became apparent when we were negotiating on the health insurance last year, and as you recall in those discussions, the health insurance premiums really jumped for a lot of members. And the principal reason for that is that the plan design could not be changed. The plan design was dictated by collective bargaining agreements. And when it says that you have a 90-10 copay or coinsurance, that's it. That's the level that you can get. And we're finding that, we had 6 companies that turned down even quoting because they don't do 90-10 anymore. 80-20 is the standard. So our market is shrinking as to who is willing to quote, and the costs are spiraling upwards. And in order, for us to get a handle on this, and of course, the city pays 89% of the health insurance premiums, 11% go to all the different collective bargaining members. We all have a vested interest in trying to get the health insurance costs more under control. So we needed to negotiate the ability to bring different plan designs to the table and have them considered. Under the present arrangement, it cannot happen that way. So we were working very hard to come up with language to replace in all of these contracts and all the ones that are going to be coming due this year, and then by amendment, ones that will be coming due in the year after, to form an insurance review committee that consists of a representative from each of the collective bargaining units in the city, plus a designee of city council and a designee of the mayor. This would comprise the committee, and that committee would be responsible for reviewing options. It would still be the administration and the finance department's responsibility to go out and get quotes and go through that with our consultants and getting the best quotes out there. But now we would have the ability to bring these quotes back and look at what the costs are, to the city, to the members, and have a discussion with the real possibility of making a change that would affect, all the collective bargaining agreements. So everybody is there working on this, and we know that in the long run, if we don't do this, as we've talked with the collective bargaining members, was, look, I understand you didn't like it that the premiums jumped so much, but what if they jump that much again next year and the next year? What's going to happen is you're going to try to come back in 3 years when these agreements are up and ask for a 10% wage differential or something, 10% more instead of a 3% hike. And we know that doesn't work. We know it isn't going to work, and we're going to reach an impasse. So we've got to get a handle on this health insurance. And so Gina and myself and Catherine had come up with language, and all this stuff, of course, was reviewed by legal counsel before we agreed to anything. But we did get the language changed in these 3 contracts to allow for this possibility that the health insurance can change upon review and of quotes that the city would go out and get. So that applies to all 3 of those agreements.
That's a good plan. Good plans, Pat.
So that if we, all those things apply except for the wages, the comp time, overtime. So now as I look, is it all right, Mr. President, or Chairman, if I look at 7B and just keep going on a roll, or do you want me to stop?
Yeah, let's go through the whole thing, and then when you're done, we'll just go through and
if there's questions, I can come back. Okay. So in patrol, same types of cleanup issues that I talked about, same issues with the insurances, all thing considered. Wages, they had asked, negotiated for 3%. And we felt that was reasonable, most likely would be awarded anyway if we didn't do it. But we looked at on the senior patrol officer who gets a stipend. Presently, if you're there 3 years, you get a stipend of $450. They wanted to see that increased to $450 for a while. We agreed to go to 600 if we increase the number of years from 3 years to 4 years to be eligible for it. And then the uniform allowance had been at $1,000 for approximately 10 years. And we agreed to increase that to $1,250. So those were the changes in patrol. A 3% wage increase, increasing the senior patrol eligibility to 4 years, and then $600, and increasing the uniform allowance by $250.
Patrick, just for point of clarification, it went to $650.
I'm sorry.
I apologize for the interruption.
Nope, please do it anytime. Must have misread it. Yeah, and don't want the collective bargaining folks that are listening to it to have a panic attack overnight. So thank you for bringing that in. On to dispatch. We were looking at a couple things with dispatch, and one of the things that we were really interested in was on overtime and trying to make sure that if we agreed to some changes in process, that process would include making sure that part-time dispatchers were offered overtime first. And so we worked collaboratively with everybody and came up with an agreement that does exactly that in the event that there is overtime, and there is a lot of shifts that need filled and overtime opportunities that become available. So they will go to part-timers first. And then if the part-timers can't fill it, then we will go in bargaining unit seniority order, with the highest seniority going first. They'll get to pick. If they refuse it, their card is marked refused. We go down to the next one and so on until it's completed. After we go through that vacancy and we start on the next vacancy, those that already have check marks aren't picked first. If the part-timers don't get it, then we go to people that don't have check marks. The idea is to spread the overtime around within the department. So that we think will work to our advantage. They also sought a comp time increase from 60 to 80 hours. We think, of course, if we can, in this department, if we can pay, if there's more comp time being used and we can fill those off hours with part-time people, we think that works to the city's financial benefit. Of course, there's a benefit to those dispatchers as well. We also, in this one, and Gina, you may have to help me on this one, but we did I think this is the one that we did the vacation buyout. That if at the end of a calendar year, someone has accumulated a requisite number of vacation hours that aren't going to be used, that would be forfeited, we would buy back 24 of those vacation hours. They could cash out those 24 of those vacation hours.
So I believe that was the FOP union, and I think we settled on a 40-hour.
40,
buyout.
okay.
Correct.
All right. In the dispatch, though, as you recall, we had 4 different levels of dispatcher, and then the lead dispatcher, and there was a lot of negotiation regarding this. This is an unusual union in that the supervisor of the dispatchers is also in the collective bargaining agreement. Typically, in the other departments in the city, that isn't the case. So we attempted to come up with something that would work for all parties involved, and that resulted in us creating what we would call a 5th tier that you would graduate up to. All the tiers have a 3% wage increase. But the lead dispatcher's salary would be based off of that 5th tier. So presently they're at 1.15 times the 4th tier, and we're looking at 1.1 times the 5th tier. So it kind of works out to be a slight increase for the lead dispatcher that's comparable to what everybody else is getting. And that's what you'll see in 7D, is that we didn't like the way the positions were labeled, and it didn't make sense. So we just wanted to retitle them. It's not hiring anybody new. It's not creating new positions. Just calling them something different, so that in this agreement, there's a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we understand down the road what that is. And then finally in this one, there was a uniform allowance granted. Presently, there was not an official one in the collective bargaining agreement, but the city had every year has budgeted funds to provide uniforms, in this case, upper body garments to all dispatchers, and that has been going on for some years and years. This makes it a little bit, obviously more formal, but it's quantified, and we've agreed to that management and labor would get together and have a conversation about what is suitable attire, and that is also in the agreement on what the uniforms are supposed to look like. So I know it's a lot to digest. We had put that in the packet, but suffice it to say, all the 3 bargaining agreements, 3% wage hike in the dispatch and in patrol, a change in differential on lieutenants and sergeants, some comp time increases, some uniform allowance changes in all, and some vacation buyout in the one, and changing the insurance provisions in everything. So that's the view from way high. As we go through this, if you have questions, I'll do the best I can, or Gina will help me answer them.
I have one question, probably towards Gina. Gina, you know what approximate increase this will cause to our budget, all these negotiations per year?
We do have that costed out. I apologize, I don't have that with me tonight.
Do you have a round figure or close to that you can estimate?
I have all of those notes in my office with the negotiations files, but I did not bring those home with me.
Okay.
I can send those out to you.
Is that amendable to you, Mark?
Yeah, I think we need to know that. And then are we going to get this from somewhere? How are we doing financially to be able to abstain this, to pick this up, or somewhere down the line? I mean, you got to pay Peter to get Paul somewhere, or we're going to have to increase something. I mean, this is all good negotiations and so on, but if it's going to increase the budget, we should know that. That's what we do, and how much, and are we able to abstain that? Where are we headed? Do we need to increase something else to pay for that?
Okay.
Well, as far as the wages go, I mean, they were budgeted for 2021 with a 3% increase. So that is accounted for.
Hey, Gene, it's Dom. So healthcare is probably the biggie, right? The healthcare, the cost this year, the increase. And when I was reading through all that, and this is what was good that you put that clause in there that we have the right to renegotiate, the package, which I think was a good thing, Pat. But, I always since I've been self-employed a long time and I had to do the insurance thing, manipulating the amount, the $500 deductibles, if they ever adjust those, that might be a way for us to offset some of the cost. The deductibles can be a little higher down the road.
Yes, being able to change the health plan design. And so by establishing this committee, we'll have a representative from every union at the table. There'll have to be a majority vote on any plan design changes before taking the next year when we go out for bid for our annual review. So if we want to increase the deductibles or maybe reduce the co-pays, but, change some of the other benefit designs, if that's something that everybody agrees to, once they see what the premium payments are going to be, those are some kind of balances that we can work through together with everybody at the table. But we weren't able to do any of that this year.
Yeah, that's my thinking, is where we have some room to work eventually, because that's why we don't have people bidding on the job, because they got the we basically offer the Cadillac plan because that's all our options at this point.
Right.
Okay, so any other questions for Patrick? And Gina, when you, the next opportunity you get, if you wouldn't mind emailing those numbers out to all of us, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Mr.
yeah,
President,
Beth?
may I
Yes, sir.
make a comment before you all vote?
You sure can.
When I first sent out the packets, I told you that we were still waiting for final legal review. The only change that came back to that is the same change in all four of these pieces of legislation, and what they recommended was being more specific on the time frame of the collective bargaining agreements. So if you look in the second version that came out a little later, they all have commence at 12 a.m. and expire at 11:59 p.m. added to the time, just for transparency and clarity's sake.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay. If there are no other comments, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the first reading of Resolution 1-21?
Bolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings.
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 1-21 under suspension of the rules.
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, may I have a motion and a second to read by title only Resolution 2-21?
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
A resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of North Canton and the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, Patrolmen, as negotiated by the Department of Administration and declaring the same to be an emergency.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Patrick for the OPBA? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the first reading of Resolution 2-21?
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. And finally, a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2-21 under suspension of the rules.
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only Resolution 3-21?
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Ben?
A resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of North Canton and the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, full-time dispatchers, and lead dispatcher as negotiated by the Department of Administration and declaring the same to be an emergency.
All right, thank you. Any questions regarding the OPBA full-time and lead dispatcher? All right, see none. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the first reading, Resolution 3-21?
Revolt moves.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Waring
False.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 3-21 under suspension of the rules.
Revolt moves.
Waring second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, may I have a motion and a second to read by title only Ordinance 1-21?
Revolt moves.
Waring second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 137, Department of Police of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, specifically Section 137.04 Personnel, to change the position titles for dispatch personnel to reflect recent changes in position titles and declaring the same to be an emergency.
All right. Finally, Pat covered this in his very short dissertation, I'll call it that. And if there's no further questions for him, I'll entertain a motion in a second to adopt the first reading, ordinance 121-21.
Revolt moves.
Waring, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. May I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Waring, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 1-21 under suspension of the rules.
Revolt moves.
Waring, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Patrick, once again, thank you to you and your staff for all you've done with everything that we're dealing with COVID, and the fact that these all 3 came due at the same time. Outstanding job, and we thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I need a motion in a second to add a special council meeting to address specifically ordinance 79-20 for the 3rd reading. Looking at my calendar, I'll throw out a date. How about next Monday, the 11th? We could do 5 p.m. again if you'd like.
Good for revolt.
I'm good with that, Dominic.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, Dominic or I, doesn't matter at all. We can't vote on it.
Oh,
That's right.
yeah.
But we have to still be at the meeting, correct?
Not really.
Not voting on it.
You feel like
I don't need to be at the
You're going on
meeting. then I
vacation,
won't be
Don.
here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So with the remaining 5, everyone's amendable to that?
Yes.
That should work.
Patrick, that works for you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so motion and a second to add a special council meeting to have the 3rd reading of ordinance 79-20 for January 11th, 5 p.m.
Revolt moves.
Yeah.
Revolt seconds.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. And that does it for our agenda tonight. So motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved. Waring.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
Browns.
Boom.